The Pittsburgh Steelers, I've been saying all along, they can't make Mason Rudolph their starting quarterback. All due respect to Mason Rudolph. I'm sure he's a fine young man. And he's had a degree of success in college. He was a second-round pick coming out of Oklahoma State. But we've seen enough. And the Steelers have seen enough. Mitchell Trubisky joins the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 2-year deal. Last year he played for the Bills for $2.5 million, first 4 seasons with the Bears. Mike, the most intriguing fact to me is the absence of one key fact. All these deals we see, 5 years, $82.5 million, 4 years, $60 million. With Mitchell Trubisky, all we've seen is 2 years. I don't know what he's getting. Whatever it is, there's no chest thumping by his agent as to what Mitchell Trubisky's getting. And why that is potentially telling, Mike, it could be that he's the Mike Glennon of 2022. Mike Glennon was the guy the Bears signed to a contract on the first day of free agency thereabouts before they drafted Mitch Trubisky. Trubisky could be the placeholder, so the Steelers aren't obviously looking for a quarterback in round 1. So Trubisky may be QB1 for just a matter of 6 weeks, not 6 months or even anything close to 6 years.
So you sit there and look at Pittsburgh now. I'm looking at Mason Rudolph, 76th pick. He was so drafted in the 3rd round. You have Dwayne Haskins, who was a first-round quarterback, and you have Mitch Trubisky, who was a first-round quarterback. And Pittsburgh will not get back into the contention for the Super Bowl with any of these quarterbacks. You know, when and I said this about on another show when there was talk of Mitch going to the Giants to maybe compete with Daniel Joseph. I said the same thing. For the Giants to get back where they want to get, neither one of those quarterbacks is going to take them there. So I agree with you. This is kind of a placeholder situation. I really wonder if Mitch Trubisky will ever be a consistent starter in the NFL. But you know how it works. He was a first-round pick, so if he is not a consistent starter in the NFL, he can bop from team to team and get himself a nice paycheck to hold a clipboard and maybe go in for a few games to hold the team's head above water until the starter comes back. Now, listen, he's saying all the right things. I went to Buffalo for that year, only made $2.5 million, but I learned a lot about the quarterback position. I feel I'm ready to go now. And so, listen, I hope he says that, and I'm sure he feels that way. Every player should. I just don't know if that's going to happen. And I'm always one, I analyze, that's what I do, but I hope I'm wrong. You know, whenever I don't think a player is going to pan out, I hope I'm wrong because I want them to pan out. I'd like them to succeed, but my job is to give my opinion on what I think is going to happen, and I just don't think it's going to happen that way for Mitch. So I'm with you, you know, whether Pittsburgh wants to pick another quarterback or they're going to get one down the road. I just think all these quarterbacks are just placeholders until they get the next guy that's going to try and lead them to the promised land.
I know Chris Sims was very critical of the way that Matt Nagy used Mitch Trubisky in Chicago. He didn't adjust the offense to suit the strengths and weaknesses of Mitchell Trubisky. And a lot of coaches do that. Hey, it's my system. You run my system. You either succeed or you fail. I'm not changing my system for you. If the Steelers implement a system that takes advantage of what Trubisky can do, look, the guy can run, the guy can move, far more mobile than Ben Roethlisberger has been in years. And, Mike, they've got enough around him. They made it to the playoffs twice in Chicago with Mitch Trubisky as the starter because they had a strong defense. Check box for the Steelers. Yep. They had the other pieces around to allow Trubisky to perform. So they got to the playoffs last year with a Ben Roethlisberger who was a shell of himself. If Trubisky's the guy, I don't think you just say they have no chance, and they probably want you to say they have no chance. They feed off of that kind of negative energy, and I also think, Mike, we do need to have to keep an eye on them for potentially drafting a guy. They're not going to tell us what they think of any of the quarterbacks in the draft class. They're going to keep their cards close to the vest, just like they did with this. We didn't think that they were going to go after Trubisky. That's what the Steelers do. They keep their mouths shut. They keep their heads down. You find out what they're going to do when they do it. And if they like one of these quarterbacks, they'll get him. And if they have to trade up, they'll do that. We've seen them do that multiple times in the past with guys they like. Troy Polamalu, Antonio Holmes, Devin Bush. They'll move up to get a guy that they really like. They're just not going to tell you until it's time to make the move.
And I'm with you about how you use a quarterback. Listen, those that are Mitch Trubisky fans are going to say it was Nagy's fault and they didn't use Mitch the right way, and hopefully Pittsburgh will. Those that don't think a lot of Mitch as a quarterback will say, we just don't think he's that good of a quarterback. Well, he gets another chance here. I don't think there's anybody out there that expects Mason Rudolph to beat out Trubisky. If that happens, that's a whole nother, thing to talk about. So I think Mitch is going to be the quarterback there. So then we'll see. We'll see how that system or the system they run is going to fit him because, we saw it just didn't work in Chicago between Mitch and Nagy. Whose fault it was? I guess time will tell by both their performances on down the road. We'll see.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.